Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April edition of Price Know-How Snippets. It's just myself and Mike today. So I'm going to start by handing over to Mike straight away, who's going to talk to you about some of the fundamentals that affect polymer prices, particularly oil price and exchange rates. So over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Katherine. Yeah, it's been quite active in terms of the oil markets. We've seen generally an uptrend in terms of pricing. So in February, the average price per barrel was 81.72. In March, that increased to 84.67, a $2.95 per barrel increase. The minimum also went up, so it went up from 77.33 to 81.92. $4.59, and the maximum went from 83.68 to 87.48, $3.8 increase. Looking at it in terms of pounds per tonne, it's £487 and a penny back in February, and that's gone up to just over £500 at £501 and 53 pence in March, an increase of £14.52. So we've got higher lows, higher highs, and higher averages. And in recent days, I think it was at the end of last week, Brent crude went just over $90 a barrel. So that's quite a significant milestone in terms of pricing. Exchange rates, again, fairly quiet, but we've seen against the euro, February 117 euros against the pound, March 117 euros against the pound. Probably the more interesting action has been pound dollar, where in February it was 126. March is an average of 127. But actually, we've seen some weakness happening in the last few days. So again, we've dropped back by about 1%. Roughly 1 cent on the exchange rate means about £20 per tonne in terms of material costs. So that'll probably come into Katherine's conversation. She starts to talk about monomers and what may happen in the polymers market. So Katherine, over to you.
Thanks very much, Mike. Yes, that activity in terms of oil price and exchange rates did impact monomers, and we saw monomer increases actually of C2 plus €40 and C3 plus €45. What that means in terms of polymer pricing is quite interesting. The picture's much more mixed because although there's the upward pressure from monomer prices, in terms of polymers, I think we're going to see supply and demand of the polymer in question play a much bigger impact in terms of what happens to polymer pricing. So it's still a really dynamic picture. I would say prices are not completely settled yet at this stage of the month. And what we're seeing is a variety of supplier approaches depending on their very own individual situations. If we start with polyethylene, here we see more pressure on pricing. And although feedstock has gone forward, we think that producers will have a much more flexible approach in terms of the polymer prices that they offer. That's largely because we've seen the return of imports on polyethylene, and that these availability imports are likely to have a biggest impact on prices. So producers will need to perhaps be a little bit more flexible, as I say, in terms of their approach. On polypropylene, availability continues to be affected by what's happening in Europe, and here we see a number of force majeures, we see some production issues, and we do actually see some tightness in terms of propylene C3 monomer. So here it's much more likely that producers will be able to hang on to the position in terms of wanting an increase to recover the monomer costs. But as I say, it really is all about supply and demand. And I think there's likely to be a bit of a standoff at the start of the month between producers who are going to be taking quite a firm position and buyers who will be sensing that there is quite weak demand and reasonable supply, and so off. We'll be pushing for perhaps better prices. So we'll be much clearer once we issue our full price know-how report in the middle of the month. But if you do have any questions in the meantime, then please don't hesitate to contact myself or Mike, or indeed your customer service team, and we'd be delighted to try and help you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.